Praise the Lord and welcome back. Thank you for joining us once again. This is the Angaza show. My name is Pastor Mwangi. And as I said, today we want to look at a very unique generation. They are called the Generation Z. In the next segment, we are going to analyze the different generations in existence. But this is the generation that no one understands them. Watu walikuwa wanasema Indo generation, walikuwa wanasema heri tupate Wajakoya Kaprezo kwa sababu tumechoka na wale wasi wenye wako area. No one understands them. Even me, I don't understand them. Na ndo maana tumewa invite kwa show to understand who they are. Naweze kutuelaboratea. So we'll be talking, it will be English, Sheng, and above all, just a conversation. Most of them wanajiita Mbogi, ama wanajiita the tribe. So on my side, niko na Benny Hinn, and also we have an amazing lady. So nitauliza mjintroduce.
My name is Favor Masila.
Favor Masila.
Yes, I'm an orator and a leader.
A leader?
Yes.
Okay, Benny.
My name is Benny Hinn Walubengo. I am an orator. I'm also the president of I Speak Society.
President?
Yes.
Okay, maybe nitaanza tu kuuliza, how old are you?
I'm 19, turning 20 on Monday.
So you're an orator?
And a leader.
And a leader?
Yes.
Okay, 19, okay, sawa. And Benny?
I'm 21.
21 and you're a president already?
Yes.
So vibe may shift. I don't know who I was when I was 21. I think when I grow up, I wanted to be an adult. Anyway, let's begin the conversation. So who are you guys? I know you are Kenyans. But anyway, what is this generation? What is it that you feel people need to understand about Generation Z?
I feel like us as a generation, we need to be understood more. In a way that when I say I want to do something, as me, I'm able to, my parents and my family and people around me are able to understand that this is what I want to do as a passion. For example, for me, my family wanted me to do nursing. And nursing wasn't my thing. I wanted to pursue business because my passion is doing something concerned with business. So I find myself having to tunakosana because wanataka niende shule nifanye nursing na mimi nataka niende nifanye business. So yeah.
So saizi bado mko fiti ama?
Bado tunaongea bado.
Mna agree to disagree?
Bado tuna agree to disagree.
So you feel you have something to say and they need to understand?
They need to understand because for them wanatafuta kitu iko on market, and for me I want to do something that I have passion for.
So you don't care about market?
No, me I want to do something that I love.
For you it's passion?
Yeah, for me it's passion.
Okay, so sawa. Benny? Yes.
Okay, so let's break it down. There are 4 types of young people in Gen Z.
Okay.
So kuna alpha, kuna axis, kuna average na kuna adaptive.
Twende pole pole. Alpha,
axis, adaptive na
adaptive
average.
Na average.
Yeah, so average uni mse mwenye maybe amezaliwa Ocha ama amezaliwa na place yenye hajakuwa na so much exposure. So ni mse tu ana story mingi, hayuko ambitious as much. Ni mse mwenye whatever life italeta yatachukua. Either amezaliwa already na background of pain, kuna vitu zimemhapenia.
Okay.
So by the time already ana grow, asha accept that even though life iko, yeye ana story mingi. Kani tuseme exam, grades zenye atapata ni sawa. Ka atapata job, akose job, ni sawa. Venye tu life itaishia. Hawa ni wase wenye wana mbio. Then kuna mse wa pili sasa. Mse wa pili anaitwa adaptive. Adaptive ni mse mwenye wazazi wake wamemwambia hii ndio pattern. Kutoka kwa mdogo, maybe alikuwa hadi prefect. Ni mse akuwa na story mingi. Yani wale obedient children, wale wenye hukuanga neat, wanakuanga wamejipanga na life. Na au wanafuata a certain pattern. So ni mse mwenye maybe ataenda high school, ata work hard. But hata work hard juu ya story ambitions ama juu ya story ya kitu personal. Motivation yake ni around the environment. What a teacher saying, what a parent saying. So ni mse mwenye ata-adapt na pattern environment. Akienda campus, ata-adapt. Ni mse mwenye atakuwa overambitious, bado utampata chini. Wanakuanga wale wase katikati. Si mbaya, si mzuri. Then in life later, bado tu ataendelea kuadapt kwa patterns. Kuna mse wa tatu, hawa ni wase wanaitwa axis. Axis ni mse mwenye anajijua mapema. Na kuna 2 things, either atafall on the negative side or on the positive side, but either side atakuwa na influence. So akiruka hii side bado ako effective. Akiruka hii side ingine bado ako effective. Uni mse mwenye leo akiamua kugather wase sherehe watatokea. Akiamua kuokoka tena wase kutakuwa na effect both sides.
Okay.
Hawa ni wase wenye most of the times wanakuanga misunderstood. Hawa ni wase wenye wanakuanga artistical. Ni wase watapenda stories za rap, watapenda stories za kusoma books, wase wenye wako a bit political, ni wase wako outspoken. Then kuna mse anaitwa alpha. Alpha ni mse mwenye ako na so much energy but haiko directed bado. So ni mse mwenye ako na psych but bado hajajifigure out. So atakuwa either side. So most of the time sasa ndo watu wao wanatry kuwa mostly ni story ya mentorship ama ni story sometimes inakuanga gaps za parenting. So sometimes unapata either wazazi wao just spend time nao fiti, so ku understand ni ngumu. Sawa, si story ya pain, ni story ya kuspend two time nao. So kuna hizo 4 categories. So hizi 4 categories ukizicheki fiti, response yao ni different, foundations zao ni different, na vile utawa handle pia ni different.
Okay.
Na pia in terms of hadi venye wana approach yao ya life iko very 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 different. So kuna hizo 4 different categories inside Gen Z.
So yeah. Favor, where do you fall?
For me, I think I fall into an alpha.
Alpha?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have, like kama saizi, I'm still trying to discover what I need to do. I was supposed to join school in 2022. I'm still pausing to ensure I know what I want.
So you've not gone to school?
No, I haven't yet joined school.
Yes.
Yes.
And you don't think you're wasting time?
No, I don't think I'm wasting time because nataka kujua exactly what I want to do. I don't want to go and do something and then I end up quitting it in between.
So at this level, you want something that will make you happy?
Yes.
It's not about parents.
Yeah.
It's about you.
It's about me personally because after this life, once I'm starting to growing up, once I live on my own, I'll be on my own. I won't have my parents to make decisions for me. So I need to be in a place where I'm able to make a decision by myself that is going to help me in the future.
What is the misconception that I want to say we parents? Let me sit on the old guys' seat and ask, what is the misconception that you think we have? If you are to speak to a parent who is parenting a Generation Z, what advice would you give them, and what are the misconceptions you feel, nyi wase utuona hivi lakini si hatukuangi hivi?
When a parent is talking to a child, also know that this is a human being, the same you're a human being. They're able to, the way you talk to them, they're able to respond back in a respectful manner. When you tell me you need to do this, I'm able to tell you, yes, I can do this, but I also give you an opinion of what I can do towards that thing.
So number one, they need to know you have an opinion also.
Opinion also, a respectful opinion.
So we are saying nyumba zikuwe na democracy.
Yeah.
Tuache mambo ya dictatorship.
Tuache mambo ya dictatorship.
Okay.
Yeah, to be able to resonate. You know, parents wanafikirianga because we are young and they gave birth to us, we are not in a position where we can be able to resonate. It's like mzazi akikwambia, don't go to this place. They want you not to go and they don't want to give you a reason. Don't go to this place.
Okay.
Nikuje nikwambie, you're not supposed to follow this lane. And they are not telling me specifically why I'm not supposed to follow this lane.
So there must be a why, not just cover. They call it police parenting.
Yes.
Like you just give orders.
Yes, because my generation are people who want to understand. Yes, like recently I've been talking to a friend of mine mwenye sister yake anasumbua at home. Nikamwambia, for this girl, for you guys to be able to talk to her, you guys are supposed to give her facts, because my generation are people who want facts. Okay. Not people who want to be told do this and do this and do this. I want to be given a fact. Why am I supposed to do this? Exactly the fact.
So amuna pepo.
Atuna pepo. Just that we want you guys to explain more.
Okay, now listen, because many parents don't understand. You see, like we are talking right now, many parents don't understand that because we grew in this culture, your parent is right even when they're wrong, and we grew in a culture whereby you can't give your opinion to your parents. It looks like it is disrespect, and so many parents are coming to the place of, you mean unanirudishia? You mean nimesema umekata? You know, and some of them feel like this one needs deliverance. And I'm happy that you're bringing to a place of clarity that yes, you listen, but you also have an opinion, you have something to say.
Yes. And
But,
also,
yes.
parents are also supposed to accept sometimes they are also wrong. Sometimes they tend to make mistakes, but they don't want to accept it because they're like, I'm older than you.
African parents always right, man.
They're always right.
Me, my dad used to be number one. I don't know who used to be number two.
Yes.
So our parents are perfect. So they need to, so you're trying to say they need to be vulnerable.
They need to be vulnerable for us, because sometimes the mistake that we tend to make as a younger generation is because they never told us, I did this and this and this and I ended up in this particular place. Wanatuambianga tu usifanye. But they don't give you examples, because generation ni watu wanataka kuambiwa nilifanya hii na nikahata. So unalearn, unajua kuna msee alifanya mistake, so you learn from their mistake.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, one writer wrote and said, show me your medals, you intimidate me. Show me your scars, you inspire me. Show me the distance between your medals and your scars, and you transform me. So what you're trying to say is, if this generation is caught up in parading medals, they can't reach you. You need real vibes.
We need real vibes. People who are telling us the truth venye iko.
Vile iko.
Without filtering anything.
Without filtering.
Yes.
Benny, anything to add on that? The misconception of Generation Z.
Okay.
Wasi wanasema mazee, hata wazazi wanakujanga wanasemanga si atuelewi ni wetu, but we don't understand these kids. And some of you have more money than your parents, you know that?
Yes. The biggest crisis of our generation is emotional instability. So whatever these young people are looking for, it's not even that aspect of success.
Okay.
I attended a graduation at KU, kona dem fulani analia na alikuwa na first class. The reason as to why she was crying, masake na mzee wake walikuwa wamemtumia 30k. Amegraduate na first class, hakuna mtu amekam. Hakuna anko yake, hakuna aunti yake, hakuna msemo amekam. So nikakam kudiscover motivation ya udem kusucceed na kuwork hard, haikuwa kusucceed pekee. Ilikuwa actually that aspect of a parent standing behind. And I think most parents haven't been trained on the aspect of emotional stability, because most of them are focusing on looking for money, the comfort of a child, and these are things now that need to start. Church haijawashow hii story. Church wakiishia wataambiwa story ya prosperity na story ya spirituality, but there are no emotional conversations. So hadi hiyo story ya vulnerability, mzaa wangu ni karao, masaa wangu ni mode. Kuna siku tumaika na mzee akaniambia ati I love you, si atuambia nangi hivyo. Language yake I love you ni kununulia kiatu, waniambie chukua hiyo kiatu ichunge. Hiyo ni I love you na hiyo imeishia hapo. So utakam kudiscover at a certain point, kuna msemi yanga akifika place, the level of competition right now is high, the level of disruption is high, so there is that emotional deficit that is lacking, and parents haven't built that capacity to share their emotions, because hadi hao wana try kujifigure out, and there's also a lot of things going around the environment.
Let's begin to give a few solutions, because you guys have the solution.
Yes.
Now, assume now we are talking to the team, to us who don't understand you. What will be the solution? How do we need to handle you? How do we need to navigate through this conversation?
First of all, I think I'll say, give us room to explain ourselves. Give us room to, like, kusi wenyewe tukue able kujieleza, kuwaambia what we love. And once tumewambia what we love, tunaweza kaa chini tuone, hii na make sense, hii hapa i make sense, hii tunaweza fanya, hii hatuwezi deal nayo. And another thing we can also do is, parents pia, understand your child venye yako. You know, parents sometimes tend to like, juu huyu alienda campus, we lazima utaenda campus. Kama firstborn alienda campus, lazima pia utaenda campus. And not all of us are structured the same.
So you're trying to define a path that if you fail, you can say, this is what I chose. You're trying to define a path and say, this is the path I've chosen. If I succeed, good. If I fail, I'll still look at it and say, this is what I chose.
This is what I chose,
and I'm not doing this to make anyone happy.
I'm not doing this to make anyone happy. That is.
You know, what is coming out is that this generation is real. And even looking at them, you know, I just look at Favor. This is them. No makeup, no nothing. Indian bogi ukuja church na macrocs na tisho ya Jordan. You know, and someone said that's the first level of realness. Like, you know, we are not trying to do the Brazilian. In fact, mtu anauza Brazilian weave what run out of market on Generation Z. Currently, what are you doing?
Currently, what I'm doing is I'm a leader in a Speak Society.
Okay.
I'm trying to write a book called Dear Self.
Dear Self?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Okay, I'm trying to understand. I really want to read the book.
Yes.
And I like the point of, I think there is a lot of, I think there is, the fact that no one is listening to you, it kind of pushes you to an emotional breakdown.
True.
Because you feel like, guys, we have something we can say. We feel like this thing can be done differently, but all of you have sat in a room and you've thought about us. You are creating programs for us, and no one is asking us what do we want. What is the tribe factor? How is it helping this generation? Is it positive? Is it negative? Do we have positive tribes? Do we have negative tribes? And how can we penetrate in those tribes? Okay. Not necessarily becoming tribesmen, but just coming with wisdom and associating and saying, you know what, guys, we are from the other tribe, but please, we can also partner in tribes.
In terms of a generation rising, if you rise without that one finger, because when we started, I said that there are 4 different categories which are supposed to be handled differently. Msee mwenye ako average, uni msee mwenye anahitaji more affirmation and direction. Msee mwenye ni axis, uni msee mwenye ashajijua, asha figure out, uni msee mwantakanga energy zake zikuwe tu, zipatiwe foundation na zikuwe grounded. Msee mwenye ni alpha, uni mtu mwenye anatakanga amira, aonetua reflection of himself, apate a pattern. Msee mwenye ashadu kitu nye amedu. Msee mwenye ni adaptive, ni mtu mwenye anatakanga a source of motivation. kitu tu imchoche, aone kuna wase wanafanya kitu different, itamfanya atoke out of the adoption system. So everyone has different needs. So ukisha understand mseko kwa hizi 4 categories, approach yako inafaa ikuwe different. So kitu yenyewe ina happen, kitu inafanyanga generation i gravitate either negative or positive side. Nimeona mademu wako campus, dem amestudy medicine, ni mwerevu, but atafuta boy ya movie shop. Andafuta boy ya movie shop, andafuta jamaa wa gym, andafuta tu jamaa wa ajabu tu, bora wapige story na wa connect. Uni dem anatoka UON. Na sasa hiyo unajua wewe ni smart, unadhani ati nyinyi mko camp. Unajua kitambo ulikuwa unaambiwa go to campus, you'll find your fellow smart ladies. Hiyo work na hii generation.
Wow.
Au mademu wa smart hadi wataki hawa si smart. Ataenda apate jamaa TikTok, jamaa na banjo, atazama na huyo jamaa. Juu yeye anadai msemo watakula mriba, wapige story. Jamaa wataangalia memes, adai mse serious. So kuna differences a generation. Na kitu nyingine happen, it's because some of them grew in environments where that the work of that one finger lacked. So mtu akigrow up ni kana anza kugravitate apate that whole life experience.
Okay, wow.
So kitu nyingine happen is that now we need to get to a place. Church lazima play role, parents lazima play role, na pia society itabidi imefika place. Ukiangalia mse unatry kujiuliza, which finger do you think this person missed?
Wow.
Some missed the aspect of fatherhood. So dem ame grow up, ameingia campus, ana come to realize there is an aspect missing in her. So ana try, wacha nitafute hii aspect before niruke to the other stage of life. Let me experience the wholeness of life. Don't deprive them that environment.
Okay.
Release them into that environment.
Okay.
And then now they'll figure out themselves. As we always say, when an egg breaks from the inside, life begins. When an egg breaks from the outside, life dies. So you ought to break from the inside.
Wow. Your final word, one statement. Our time is up. One statement.
I'll give a 30-second story. There was a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old walikuwa na play kwa ocean. And it was during winter, so the ocean was a bit icy. So huyu 9-year-old alianguka kwa hiyo sea. Na ice ilikuwa inaendelea kugather, so alikuwa anaendelea kusink. So mtu yeye akascream, hakuna msichana kama, akaona wooden block, akakimbia akaichukua, akaanza kugonga hiyo ice. Aligonga for like 10 minutes, finally ili break. Akapull brother yake alikuwa almost hadi ana pass out. After like 10 minutes kuna mafishermen walikam, wakaita ambulance. When ambulance ilikam, manases walikuwa wanaulizana, how did a 12-year-old manage to break this ice? Na hii kitu hadi waivunjwe na the hardest pieces of rock. And then there is an old man who came and whispered, akasema, the 12-year-old managed to break because there was no one around to tell him he cannot.
Wow.
And that's where the biggest gap is. We just need people to tell us that you can get out of this addiction, you can get out of this weakness, you can actually do this thing, and we shall do it.
Amen. One word, favor.
For me, what I can say is, for my generation is, you can't figure everything out. As long as you see your next step, step there.
Sami nitasema nini, wisdom iko hapa ni heavy. Kuliko ni chome, situngoje to the next segment atuone vile itakuwa. God bless. You know, this is real and this is a real conversation, and may God bless you. We've not even begun. That was just scratching the surface. See you in the next segment. God bless you. So thank you very much for joining us once again, and you know, tumekuwa na real conversation. Understanding Generation Z is just a mystery. I love what they've said. The most important thing for them is emotional settlement and establishment. Si tunawapushia ma medals, tunawapushia mandai, ma degree na nini, but when they are not emotionally stable, then inakuwa ni ngumu. Wamesema pia si tuko na opinion, tuko na kitu tunataka kusema, lakini inakanika kuna mtu anataka kutusikiza. Ndio maana tumeform our tribe, ile wanaita Mbogi. And some parents also, I know you're also learning, because this is a learning process. And so right now, we want to profile that generation. Tuelewe hawa ni nani, waliapia aje, because everyone is in a generation. Tuelewe what are their values, what are the generations in Kenya, what are their values, and how can we work together. And above all, preach to them, mentor them, raise them, and lead them in the right direction. And so I'll ask the panelists to introduce themselves, because this is a real conversation. I'll begin from this side.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. My name is Ken Patrick Mwenda. I'm a pastor at Life Church Limuru, but I'm also a designer at Beware Designs.
Okay, watu wa fashionista.
Yes, sasa.
Okay.
Thank you.
Na msiogope kuongea sheng nini, tunaongelesha wazazi na tunaongelesha vijana at the same time.
Wow.
My name is Eugene Moreithi, pastor in Life Church Limuru, also an interior designer.
Okay. Hata yeah. Luku tu inakaya designer. So, Patrick, just give us an outlay of generations. You know, Kenya kuna sisi, kuna wazazi wetu, kuna nini. What is that breakdown, if you have to give us the breakdown?
Yeah, the generations are divided in terms of years. tukianza na the first one, that one we might not relate a lot with it. It's called the greatest generation, walizaliwa between 1900 to 1925. And the reason they are called the greatest generation, you realize that most of the people in that generation were exploit makers. Those people had land, they had exploits, yani walikuwa too great in their own way. And then they were not the people that were affected mostly by the colonialization. Na wase walikuwa wanafaitia rights zao, so they really fought it and all of that. But after them came the silent generation.
Okay.
The silent generation is between 1925 to 1945. Then after the silent generation, we have the baby boomers. They pick up from 1945.
Mbona wanaitwa silent?
Okay, the silent generations wanaitwa hivyo because these are the people that were really oppressed by the scope of the lifestyle at that time with the colonialization and all of that. So these were people that were oppressed and they could not speak out.
Okay.
So at that time they could not tell anything. They had just walikuwa wakikaa place wamekuwa subjected to whatever authorities were in their day.
Okay.
So that's why they're called the silent generation. But after them came the baby boomer generation. Now, the baby boomer generation is a serious generation because it began in 1946 to 1964. You realize these are generations that came just about when a lot of nations, especially in Africa and in the context of Kenya, were getting to the place of independence. So those good times, a lot of babies were born in that season. When everybody was anticipating the independence, they were able to give birth a lot. And therefore we have the baby boomer generation. There were so many that came at that particular time. After them we have the generation X, 1965 to 1979. The X generation, you realize you jump one generation, the other generation is the father of the next. So the great generation gave birth to the baby boomers.
Okay.
The silent generation gave birth to
Generation X.
So you jump one and you realize these are the fathers of the other generation. Now after the X generation, we have the generation Y.
Nini na define X generation?
Oh, if I'm to define the X generation, one of the things that defines them is education.
Okay.
These are people that grew up in the post-independent Kenya, and most of the parents had seen what education had done to the other generation, which is the baby boomer generation. So generation X ni wase walienda shule, they did a lot of study, they have gone outside the country. This was the first generation to step out. Some of them also the generation that took over the instruments of power and the institutions that the colonialists had established in our country.
So each generation emphasis yao ni masomo.
Masomo.
Hao ndo nakwambianga kama una degree.
Kama una degree, kama hujasoma, you're not telling me anything.
Okay.
So our generation walikuwa najua tu kusoma, Gen X. Now after Gen X,
na hiyo time hadi ukimaliza form 4 kulikuwa na wera.
Hiyo time kwanza, if we were to profile each generation by itself, we would have to speak a lot about them. Like generation Y, number one, you must realize that our civil walimaliza kuchop, there were a lot of opportunities za business, kulikuwa na opportunities mob za career, and then this generation was very empowered.
That is generation
realize,
X.
X. Because una realize msi alikuwa amemaliza tu form 4 was primed to become a civil servant. The fact that akona hiyo paper ya form 4 and he could speak English fluently, the opportunities were so many for him. But also they are the parents to the millennials.
Okay. Okay.
After that kuna hii Gen Y sasa.
Okay.
Gen Y are the millennials. The millennials were born in 1980 to 1994. Hii ndio generation mi na fall in. Now what defines our generation is that sisi ndio tulizaliwa wakati walikuwa na pioneer the internet. So tuli grow up na hiyo sisi, we are living a very fast paced life. Because nikijiangalia na life yangu, nilianza na kale kasimu kahao. Ile ilikuwa ina ring, mnakimbia mnashika. Then within a short time nikaanza kuona the call centers zenye zilikuwa zimekuwa kwa barabara, unaenda unaweka mashilingi alafu na call wase. Within a short time imekuja kwa mkono. Then within a very other short time tumeingia kwa internet. Now tuna Skype na mzee tukiangaliana. So si tumekuwa tuki-evolve very fast. And you realize because of that, gen yetu hatuwezi kaa place moja for long. Another thing that also defines our generation is that tuliingia wakati mapero. Sasa because of the baby boomers na the Gen X, hiyo empowerment ilifanya the family unity kaanza kuwa affected sana.
In Kenya tuko around generation 6
Yes.
tuna coexist. Na tunajaribu kusema kila generation iko na values zake.
Yes.
Iko na vita zake.
Yes.
Na iko na vile ina view life.
Eugene.
Maoni yako, wewe umepreach ghetto. Kwa hivyo umedeal na mbogi real time.
Sure.
Nini umestudy na hii generation? Maybe uangalie generation yako juu sawa ni millennial na believe. Uangalie generation X. Nini unaangalia hivi unaona hapa hivi if nothing happens kinaweza umana?
Kwangu mimi naweza sema kama vile Pato amesema. Number 1 ni exposure. Because with exposure unapata kuna aspects fulani za culture zinakuwa broken. Because ukiangalia ile kitu yenye ilikuwa ina direct hizi generation zote kuanzia mahali penye ameanzia profiling, unapata ilikuwa ni culture kwa sababu ya kukua conserved, kwa sababu ya kukua wako within certain confinements and boundaries. So unapata kwa sababu hakuna exposure ilikuwa easier kuweka hiyo culture, kuweka wacha niziite tamaduni pamoja. Basi hiyo kama unapata tunaishi time yenye msee anaweza akakuwa kwa Kenya lakini influence yenye ako nayo si ya mtu mwenye ako Kenya. So unapata zile vitu zenye ana learn unapata over 90% si kwa mapero. Mtu yako 2 years already ashaingia baby shark na vitu kama hizo. Unapata ile exposure. So mtu by the time unakuja kumfunza culture ya mahali penye mmetoka, tamaduni, kama ni values za family na hizo vitu zote. And I believe hapo ndio sasa mahali penye tuko. Unapata hii generation yenye tuko saa hii, Gen Z wako exposed, na ukikam sasa the alpha generation unapata pia wako sasa level ya juu kabisa. Because ukiangalia saa hii tumeanza kuenda mpaka nyuma kidogo, sababu unapata mtoi wa 9 years, 8 years already ako exposed kwa vitu zenye mimi nikiwa niko 18 years sikuwa na hiyo exposure.
Wow.
Yeah, so mimi naweza sema ni hiyo fast pace venye tuna move, hiyo pace yenye tuna move nayo unakama unapata watoi wako exposed na saa hii huwezi deal na mtoi mwenye una deal na yeye saa hii venye ulikuwa una deal na yeye 10 years ago. Hiyo exposure ndio inatu affect
na kuingia kwa hii tribe.
Yes.
Juu umepreachia matini na wamekukubali.
Yes.
Kuingia kwa hii tribe msee anaingiaje? Juu wazazi wengi wameshindwa, wanafeel kuna ukuta.
Yes.
Najaribu kukam atuongei na mzazi anafeel kama tulikuwa na favor hapa. Na favor akasema yeye ametekwania akitaka kujijua kwanza yeye ni nani.
True.
Mother anataka afanye nasi lakini ana feel passion yake kwa biashara. Nataki kufanya kitu imbambe. So utaingiaje kwa hii space na mtu akona opinion yake na na feel pia lazima asikizwe? Utaingiaje kwa hii space na ubonge nao na develop relationship na ikwe bado haujawapoteza?
Number 1 ile kitu nimekam ku notice ni hii generation hawaja focus sana on what we want for them, because as a parent ukiwa uko na mtoi na nitini, there is what you want for the child, be it a girl or a boy. But huyo mtoi kabla kuopenie space yake, kitu ya kwanza uanga anajiuliza umeelewa ni nini na need. Okay. Because I think ukiangalia mambo ya needs za hii generation yenye tuko nayo saa hii, they are more centered on what they need more than what they want. There is what we want for them as parents. We want them to succeed. But umejiuliza huyu mtoi ana need nini saa hii? Because their need as per the moment kwao is more important than what you want. You may be wanting a brighter future, but yana angalia saa hii ako like mimi mom, dad saa hii na need kuvaa kitu fulani. Saa hii ndio ina trend. So as per their definition kwao hiyo ni need. Wewe ukiangalia unaona hii ni want. So hapo hiyo difference, because kenye sisi tuna define kama mapero tunaangalia needs versus wants. Tunasema this is what you need because of the future. But yeye anaangalia anasema this is what I need now. Kama nitataka hiyo kitu baadaye, because kwao future I make sense sana. Kama venye saa the present.
So they are living in a now reality.
Yeah, we are in a social community. Yeah.
Whereby now is more important.
Yes.
Vile nakaa saa hizi
because vile navaa hii generation saa hii wanataka kuvaa vile wanaona kuna valiwa. Si vile hii
Unataka.
situation iko so hata afadhali avae kitu yenye ni fake,
Ni rugged.
afadhali avae kitu yenye ni fake, lakini at least imekaribia ile brand ina trend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pato, with this generational discrepancies, ama tuseme differences, do you think ni possible values za generation moja kukua passed to another generation?
I think hiyo ndio ilikuanga, that was the foundation of our basic cultural structure. Ilikuanga generation moja ina teach values zake kwa generation next. But hiyo break ya generation values being transferred, I think ilianzanga na Gen X.
Okay.
Because Gen X ukiangalia ka generation kakona values za baba zao. Na ni wase wanaweza kuja. Actually ukifikanga time ya rush ama time ya marriage ndio unakutangao ma Gen X. Wanarudi pale wanakuelezea mutaratara. Bako mwenyewe uko like baba ulikuwa unajua hii story na vile unakanga modern. So hawa wase walibeba hizo values. But because of education na modernity waliweza ku-evolve. Okay. So they were able to save zile values waliona baba zao zina work for them, walizi-adopt. Na pia wakakamna zingine. But they are not able to pass them to the next generation. Okay. Na the reason for that is twofold. Una realize pia vile tulikuwa tunalea, hawa wase waligrowia in a family setup. Si tulianza kugrowia wapi? Boarding schools.
Yeah.
So we started to grow away from the family setup.
Wow.
Na wao waligrowia kwa family setup. So si tulianza kugrow na mbogi. Actually the millennials ni generation imejilea, for lack of a better term.
Maybe how can we explain that? Because ulianza kusema generation X, and for this matter generation X, I want to believe
1965 to 1979.
Hao ndio wazazi wa millennials.
Hao ndio wazazi wengi wa millennials na wazazi wa Gen Z.
Wazazi wengi wa Gen Z ni generation gani?
Ni hiyo Gen X sasa, but sasa wetu most of them ni hao baby boomers, late baby boomers.
Okay, so for tuseme Gen X ndio ili give birth to
millennials.
Generation Z.
Yes.
Generation X. Juu sasa kuna
X
X
to Z.
Y
Yeah.
alafu Z. So generation X ndio ili give birth to
Gen Z.
To Gen Z. So ni nini kwa generation X ilikuwa compromise ndio ikaproduce hii generation? Juu hii generation whatever wana go through ni reaction. Udema amesema kuna hiyo part ya tunatafuta emotional stability.
Yes.
Ni nini tunaweza profile kwa generation X? Makosa zinaweza kuwa zili happen. Ndio sasa tunaanza kuona hii generation totally kuna disconnection because something went wrong somewhere.
And I think what went wrong is the place that Gen X, because ya education na because the opportunities zenye zilikuwa zimelewa before them, most of them spent time in what we call career development.
Okay.
So our say wali sacrifice family time for career development. So una realize waliachia watoto wao nannies
na body
na wakaachia teachers ndio walelele watoi. So by the time wanaletewa teenager, they cannot understand the teenager alone. Because walipatia no mtoto, the moment aliingia nursery school, mse alioga mkono. Mtoto anaoshwa asubuhi na nani, anaekwa kwa school bus, anasoma mpaka 9. By the time anakuja mzae hajatoka job. Na by the time anakuja, the only time anaweza spend na mtoto ni 5 to 1 hour.
So we can conclude that Generation Z it's an abandoned generation.
Number one, hawana family.
Is a lonely generation. Wengi wamereiziwa kwa generation ya wazazi walianza stories za gashungwa.
Yes.
Ama mpango wa kando.
Yes.
So it's a generation grow on broken family foundations.
Yes, yes.
Na ni generation wamekuja kuintroduce kwa wazazi wao wakiwa teenagers, wakiwa washafiga out life. Na mzazi at this time haizi impact values zake kwake juu ashaform tribe yake.
Alafu kitu kingine pia like vile Eugene amesema, usirealize hakunanga vacuum kwa world. So if you don't play your part, someone else will play their part.
Yes.
Na the fact that mapero hakuplay your part haimaanisha watoto wakupata mse wa kuwa teach. Na exposure haikuwa local. Si vile ati ulikuwa kama wewe ulei mtoto wako kuna neighbor pale anakuja kukucorrectia mtoi ati alipata mtoto wako akikula matunda ya jirani akakuchapia yeye. Yeah. Sasa hizi unafunzwa mtoto na mtu wako America. Unafunzwa mtoi na mtu wako China.
Wow.
Unafunzwa mtoi na mtu wako Europe.
Na kila mtu ako na right of opinion.
Na kila mtu ako na right ya access kwa huyo mtoi.
Wow, you know we are trying to I love this conversation because I feel first of all we need to understand a generation And I think it's T.D. Jakes who said, you have no business rebuking a generation you have not trained. So we are very active on Twitter, kulizani watoto wa nani, nini mbaya na hii generation. But we are now going back to the root cause that you kama generation X ilikuwa messed up. Ideally, whatever they gave birth to is so broken that they are broken.
Yeah.
But the final word, our time is well spent. Najua hii topic hatuwezi exhaust. Just look at that camera, the word that you want to give to the viewers.
My final word is this. Even as we try to move forward and continue to build our lives, we must not ignore the place of generations, especially from the millennials going down to alpha generation. And one of the things that I would really love to tell every person that is listening to us is that the place of belonging, the place of brethren, the place of fellowship, the place of iron sharpening iron cannot be ignored. We must get back to the place of where we forsake the silo mentality. Everybody wants to do things by themselves. They don't want, people want to prosper by themselves. They want to elevate by themselves, and get back to the place where we were lifting each other up. Because at that level, we were able to lift our brothers, we were able to lift our sisters, we were able to lift even our parents. And that was the communication of a parent. When the child is empowered, the child taking care of the parent. Nowadays, we are seeing a lot of children, the moment they are empowered, they are leaving the parents, and that's why we are having these old homes and all of that conversation. But my prayer is that we can get back to the place of fellowship, the place of community, and the place of family. That is my cry.
Eugene,
Yes.
final wisdom.
In life, there are 4 gates. We have the gate of birth, the gate of teenagehood, we have the gate of marriage, and then now the last gate where we get to exit, which is the gate of death. Death is a gate. But these 2 gates, the gate of birth and the gate of teenagehood, these are foundational gates. This is where now identity is formed. This is where now character, the system that now this man is able to walk in is formed. And I believe this is where now we have missed as parents, as a society, to invest our attention and our focus in. When we have given birth to a girl or a boy, how are we involved in forming the identity of that boy? Tunaachia society, tunaachia idols, ama tunaachia celebs ama icons wenye wako kwa dunia ndio wa form identity ya watoi wetu. I would want to say, let us be intentional in what we've given birth until now they have formed their identity in the teenagehood gate. For me, I will say we are blessed because this conversation will open up more conversations. And now, if you did not know, now you know. And now you can begin. And one thing that I always say, it is never too late to start. Whether you miss some years, you can still come in and walk with your child, and it will be well. Shalom.
So thank you very much. I believe conversation ndo imeanza. We've not even scratched the surface, but I believe as a parent, there's a take home. One thing I will say, never sacrifice what money cannot buy. At the end of the day, you can't sacrifice your children at the expense of success, because once you lose your children, you can never buy them back with the money that you get. And the second thing I'll say, children are a gift to God, but the children we raise are also children are a gift from God, but the children we raise are a gift to God. So we have a responsibility. Najua time ni hard, kubalance and everything is not easy, but at the end of the day, the grace of God is sufficient. Na najua hii generation itastand, Mbogi tribe zitakuwa ni tribes of Jesus, as it go away and the Lord will fight their battle. So anyway, thank you very much. See you in the next segment where we discuss scripture, which is the crossroad segment.
I'm so glad that your glory fills my heart.
Well, thank you for joining us. This is the Crossroad segment. And I just want to read a scripture in the book of Acts, chapter number 13 and verse 36. The Bible says, for David, after he had served his own generation by the will of God, fell on sleep and was laid unto his fathers and saw corruption. Some version says, when David served the purposes of God in his generation, he died and he was buried, and of course he was gathered with his fathers. Na ile kitu ina come up very clearly is that David lived in a certain generation, served the purposes of God in that generation. One thing is that in every generation you can either serve the purpose of men, serve the purpose of God, or even serve your own purpose. But the greatest achievement is to serve the purposes of God. We've been having a conversation about Generation Z. This is what I believe, that indeed they are in a certain generation and there are purposes of God in that generation. And my prayer is that God will open their eyes to understand that there are purposes of God upon their generation. The mystery is that you can never serve another generation's purpose if you're from another generation. Everyone is created to live in a generation and to serve the purposes of God earlier. The earlier you discover the purposes of God, the relevant you become in your day. This is what they say, that when a man does not know his reason of being, that man will abuse his season of being. When a man does not know his reason of being, that man will abuse his season of being. And I believe when David served the purposes of God in his generation, he rested and he was gathered with his fathers. I pray that God will lead you to understand the purposes of God in your day and to understand the reason of your being so that you maximize on your season of being. My name is Pastor Tim Mwangi and this is the Crossroad segment. I want to say thank you to the ACK family, that is All Saints Cathedral, for availing this amazing facility for the shooting of the Angaza show. I want to appreciate everyone that is behind the camera, behind the screens, and everyone that is making this production possible. May God bless you. See you next time. This is the Angaza show. God bless you.